The cicadas screeched so sharply it felt as if the sound were drilling straight into my eardrums. The moment my pen hovered above the name box on the answer sheet, I suddenly opened my eyes wide. In front of me was the familiar classroom. Red posters urging calm and determination were plastered across the walls. Outside the window, the mottled shadows of the old locust tree spilled across the desks. A faint mix of ink and chalk dust lingered around the tip of my pen. This was the college entrance exam room of 1995, the place that changed my entire life. My heart pounded so violently it felt like it might break through my ribs. The final moments before my death still burned on my retinas. A freezing alley on a winter night, me lying on the icy ground, blood seeping through my fingers. Through the blur, I saw Ethan Gu's tall, steady back. He was holding Lily in his arms, his steps firm and without the slightest hesitation. No matter how desperately I called out, he never turned around. Lily, my twin sister, the treasured darling our mother held in the palm of her hand. And I had been nothing more than a stepping stone in her life. 5 minutes left. If you haven't filled out your name and exam number, hurry up. The proctor's stern reminder came from the podium. I gripped my pen so tightly my knuckles turned white. In my past life, this was the exact moment my mother stood outside under the tree, repeating over and over, "Emily, your grades are better. Take the exam for Lily. Once she gets into college and marries well in the future, our whole family will benefit." I had been trapped by her tears and the moral burden she used in the name of family. My pen trembled as I wrote Lily Lynn, personally handing my life to someone else. After that, Lily used the score that should have belonged to me to enter a teacher's college, while I followed mother's arrangements, dropping out early to work. Later, she pushed me toward Ethan, who had just enlisted. I thought that marrying for love would help me escape the mud I was stuck in. I never expected to die in a cold, forgotten corner, watching my husband walk away carrying my sister. Now the faint scratching of my pen brushed across the paper. This time, I didn't hesitate at all. Stroke by stroke, neat and firm, I wrote Emily Lynn, a name carrying all the resentment and despair of my past life and all the hope and determination of this new one. "Students, check your name and exam number so you don't fill them in wrong," the proctor said as she walked past my desk. She glanced down at my answer sheet. I lifted my head to meet her eyes. My voice trembled almost imperceptibly, yet it was steady and resolute. "Yes, ma'am, that's my name." She nodded and moved on to the next table. I lowered my gaze. Looking at those two clear words, tears almost spilled out, but I forced them back. Why cry? The one who should have cried was the Emily of my previous life, the weak, obedient fool who let others manipulate her. In this life, I would live for myself. The exam bell rang. Test papers were distributed. As I looked at the familiar Chinese exam questions, all the knowledge suppressed in my past life surged back instantly. I took a deep breath, pushed down the emotions churning in my chest, and my pen flew across the page. The reading comprehension passage was Zhu Ziqing's back view. In my past life, my mind had been filled with my mother's reminders, my handwriting messy, my thoughts scattered. But now, I calmly analyzed the passage. Every answer I wrote felt like paving the road for my own life. A soft cough came from the desk beside me. From the corner of my eye, I caught a profile about 70% similar to mine. It was Lily. She sat diagonally in front of me, frowning as she chewed on her pen, clearly helpless before the question. I pulled my gaze back, my heart completely still. In my past life, I always yielded to her, always letting her have the best of everything first. And what did she ever give me in return? She had felt completely justified stealing my life, and even when I died of illness, she was still nestled in Ethan Gu's arms. In this lifetime, I would never give in again. Time slipped by as my pen moved across the page. In the exam hall, the only sounds were pages turning and pen scratching. I sank into the rhythm of answering questions, as if the world had shrunk down to just me and the exam paper. When I reached the essay topic, seizing one's destiny, I barely hesitated before writing my true feelings. Destiny isn't a puppet controlled by others. It's a pen held in your own hand. Only by writing bravely can you create a chapter that belongs to you. When the bell signaling the end of the exam rang, I calmly set my pen down. I checked my answer sheet once, making sure my name and answers were correct, then stood up and walked out of the exam room. The sunlight outside was blinding. Parents crowded anxiously behind the barricade line, craning their necks to look inside. I spotted my mother at once. She was wearing that faded blue work jacket, holding a bottle of soda in her hand, standing on tiptoes to peer in. When she saw me come out, she rushed over immediately, a tense smile on her face. "Emily, how did it go? You didn't fill in the wrong name, right?" There was a probing look in her eyes. She was clearly still thinking about me taking the exam for Lily. I took the soda she handed me but didn't open it. Instead, I looked her straight in the eyes and said each word slowly and clearly. "Mom, I filled in my own name, Emily Lynn." The smile on her face froze instantly. Her expression shifted sharply as she lowered her voice and hissed, "Are you crazy? Didn't I tell you? Take the exam for Lily." "I'm not." I cut her off before she could finish. My voice wasn't loud, but it was unwavering. "My life is mine to decide." After that, I stepped around her and walked straight toward home. Behind me came my mother's furious shouting and Lily's pitiful sobbing, but I didn't look back. I knew this was only the beginning. What awaited me next would be my mother's hysterics, Lily's fake tears, and possibly the entire family's accusations. But I wasn't afraid. After crawling back from the hell of my previous life, I had nothing left to lose. Sunlight fell warmly across my shoulders. I tightened my grip on the soda bottle, the coolness seeping into my palm and clearing my mind even more. The college entrance exam was only the first step. I wanted to get into the best university, study a major I loved, stay far away from this calculating household, and see the wider world. As for Ethan Gu, as for all those entanglements from my previous life, they could stay in the past. In this life, Emily Lynn would live for myself alone. The road home felt unusually long. My mother scolded me nonstop the whole way. Lily trailed behind, letting out soft, pitiful sobs now and then, drawing curious glances from passers-by. I straightened my back, letting those sharp words pierce me like needles, but my heart remained still, like a deep, quiet pool. When I pushed open the weathered wooden door, a mixture of coal smoke and food drifted out to greet me. The cramped living room held an old square table with 2 plates of pickled vegetables and a bowl of watery porridge, clearly heated again just for us. But before I could sit down, my mother slammed herself onto the table with a loud smack, making the bowls clatter. "Emily Lynn, so your wings have gotten hard now, huh?" Her sharp voice grated, the veins on her forehead pulsing. "How many times have I told you? Your sister is weak. The college entrance exam is so important for her. What's wrong with taking it for her? We're family. Why are you acting like there's a you and a her?" I set the soda bottle in my hand down on the table. I lifted my eyes and looked at her. "The exam is a fair competition. It's not something you give away. I took the test with my own ability. Why should I take it for her? On what basis?" My mother reacted as if she'd just heard the biggest joke in the world. She tapped her finger hard against my forehead. "On the basis that you're the older sister. You've always been smarter than her since you were little, always better at handling things. Isn't it natural for you to give way to her? If Lily can't get into college and can't marry into a good family in the future, how will that not embarrass us? My life isn't here to secure her future." I brushed her hand away. My tone remained calm, but it carried an unshakable firmness. Just then, Lily walked over and grabbed my arm. Her eyes were red and tears streamed down her cheeks like broken beads. "Emily, I know I'm the one who's wrong. I'm too stupid, but I really want to go to college. Mom said if you take the exam for me, I'll definitely repay you someday. Please, help me just this once, okay?" Her hand was cold, trembling on purpose. The exact same act she used in my previous life. Back then, I was softened by this pitiful display again and again, giving in every time. But her so-called repayment had been enjoying everything that should have belonged to me while I lay dying. Without showing any emotion, I pulled my arm away and looked straight into her eyes. "Lily, opportunities are earned, not handed out. If you really want to go to college, you can take the exam again next year. Only what you achieve through your own effort truly belongs to you." "I can't, Emily." Lily burst into louder sobs and threw herself into our mother's arms. "Mom, look, she still refuses to help me. What am I supposed to do? Is my life over?" My mother immediately tightened her hold on her, glaring at me viciously. Emily Lynn, you ungrateful girl. I raised you all these years for nothing. If I'd known you'd grow up this selfish, I wouldn't have given birth to you. Selfish? A short laugh escaped me, tinged with all the bitterness accumulated from my previous life. Mom, all these years I've worn her hand-me-downs, eaten her leftovers. After school, I cook, I wash clothes, and on weekends I work part-time so she can stay in school. What part of that is selfish? Now I just want to fight for myself once, and that makes me selfish? These words had been trapped inside my chest for too long. In my past life, I never dared say them. I was afraid of hurting my mother's feelings, afraid people would call me unfilial. But now I understood. Blind obedience and constant sacrifice only encouraged them to take more. My mother froze for a moment under my questions, then immediately switched to hysterics. I don't care. You must give this exam opportunity to Lily. If you don't, I'll die right here in front of you. She lunged toward the wall, as if to slam herself into it. Lily quickly grabbed her, crying while sneaking a glare at me from behind her tears. Watching this mother and daughter performance, perfectly coordinated, I felt nothing but bitter irony. Mom, you don't need to do this, I said as I stood up, letting my gaze sweep over the home that suffocated me. The exam is already over. I filled in my own name. It can't be changed. From now on, my life is my responsibility. I won't sacrifice myself for anyone again. If you dare go against me, I won't acknowledge you as my daughter. Get out. Leave this house right now. My mother screamed, shaking with fury. I will, I said, without the slightest hesitation. Then I turned toward my room. My room was small and dim, with only a single bed and an old wooden cabinet. I opened the wooden cabinet. Inside were only a few faded, overwashed clothes and a couple of textbooks. I quickly stuffed the clothes and books into an old canvas bag, then reached under the bed frame and pulled out the few dozen dollars I had saved. It was money I'd earned from part-time work and from cutting back on my own food expenses. Money I had originally planned to use to buy my mother a birthday gift. Now, it had become the travel fund for me to leave. When I stepped out of the room, my mother was still crying and cursing in the living room. Lily sat beside her, looking at me with a complicated expression. I didn't look at either of them again. Slinging the canvas bag over my shoulder, I walked straight toward the door. Emily Lynn, if you walk out, don't you ever come back, my mother's voice shouted behind me, dripping with threat. I stopped for a moment but didn't turn around. I simply said calmly, Mom, once I get into college, I'll still send you living expenses, but I won't let you control my life the way you used to. With that, I pulled open the door and walked out in long strides. The sunlight outside was warm, and a gentle breeze brushed against my face, carrying the scent of freedom. I turned back to look at the familiar wooden door one last time. There was no nostalgia in my heart, only relief. From today onward, I, Emily Lynn, would no longer be anyone's stepping stone. I would pursue a life that belonged to me and finally see the vast world my mother always said I didn't deserve. After leaving home, I found temporary work at a textile factory in the county town. During the day, I stepped on the sewing machine to rush orders. At night, I slept in a bunk bed in the factory dormitory and studied the remaining subjects under a dim yellow bulb. There were still 2 exams left in the college entrance exam, and I couldn't let my break with my family ruin everything. The women in the dorm were simple and kind. When they learned I was taking the exam, they voluntarily gave me the bed by the window and often shared their meals with me. I worked to earn tuition while using every spare moment to review. I collapsed into bed exhausted each night, but every day felt solid and fulfilling. It was the first time I had worked hard for my own goal. No manipulation, no sacrifice, just pure effort and hope. When the college entrance exam finally ended, I stood at the crossroads in the county town, holding the wages I had just received. For the first time, I felt the future brighten. I didn't go home. Instead, I called a neighbor and asked her to tell my mother I was safe. The days waiting for results felt unbearably long. I lived each day with anxious anticipation. The women at the factory often comforted me. Emily, you worked so hard. You'll definitely get into a good university. I smiled and nodded, but deep inside there was a faint unease. My score from the previous life had been real. But even though I had given everything I had this time, I didn't know whether fate would grant me another chance. One day near the end of July, I was rushing through work in the workshop when the factory manager suddenly ran in, shouting, "Emily! Quick, go to the office. Someone from the Education Bureau is calling about your exam results." My heart shot up into my throat. The needle and thread fell straight from my hands to the floor. I rushed after the manager, running all the way. Sweat soaked through my back, and my mind went blank. The phone in the office was still connected. A gentle voice came through the receiver. "Is this student Emily Lin? Congratulations. Your total score ranks in the top 50 in the entire province. You're 80 points above the key university cutoff. You are our county's liberal arts champion this year." Boom! It was like fireworks exploded inside my skull. I stood there in a daze as tears streamed down uncontrollably. This wasn't a dream. I had really done it. I had earned my own score with my own name. The factory manager patted my shoulder with a big grin. "Good girl, you really made us proud. Our factory actually produced a top scorer. This is incredible." I took the phone, my voice choked as I said, "Thank you, sir. Could you please tell me my exact score and when I should submit my university application?" The teacher patiently told me my score and reminded me of the important details about filling out my application. After hanging up, I covered my mouth and cried like a child. All the grievances and bitterness from the past and all the anxiety I had carried since being reborn melted into pure joy in that moment. The news spread quickly through the county and soon reached my home. The next day, my mother showed up at the textile factory. Her expression was dark, but she didn't explode like before. Instead, she grabbed my hand, her tone unusually soft, almost flattering. "Emily, Mom knows she was wrong. Come home with me, okay? You scored so well. Mom will throw you a celebration banquet. I want everyone in the county to know my daughter made something of herself." I pulled my hand back and said calmly, "I'm not going back. Why are you being so stubborn?" My mother's voice immediately dropped into a heavier tone. "Since you got into college, what about tuition and living expenses? Mom will gather the money. You're my daughter. How can you let others say you have no home to return to?" I looked at her. "I've earned some money myself. If it's not enough, I can apply for student loans. I'm not being stubborn. I just want to live my own life." At that moment, Lily also arrived. Her eyes were filled with jealousy, even though she tried to look admiring. "Emily, you're amazing. Such a high score. Mom said you should apply to the teacher's college. Being a teacher is stable and respectable. Isn't that great?" I knew exactly what they were planning. The teacher's college had low tuition and was close to home. They wanted to keep me tied to them. But I already had a goal in mind, the International Relations program at the Capital University of Foreign Studies. In my previous life, I had been interested in languages and international affairs, but because I took the exam for Lily and married early, I never got to chase that dream. "I've already decided which school I'm applying to," I said firmly. "The Capital University of Foreign Studies, International Relations." "What?" My mother's voice shot up several pitches. "That far away? And so expensive. Who's going to take care of you over there?" "No, I won't allow it. My application is mine to fill out," I said without looking at her. Then I turned toward the dormitory. "Please go home, and don't come looking for me again." My mother's cursing turned into a stream behind me, and Lily chimed in to support her. But I didn't turn back. I knew that if I gave in even once, they would pull me back into that swamp all over again. On the day applications opened, I requested leave and went to the County Education Bureau. The staff saw my score and couldn't help praising me. With a provincial top 50 score, getting into cuffs is absolutely no problem. I carefully wrote Capital University of Foreign Studies International Relations on the application form. Every stroke felt like sketching out my future. In mid-August, the acceptance letter arrived at the textile factory. The red envelope was embossed with the school's name in gold. When I opened it, all the women in the dorm gathered around, chattering excitedly and congratulating me. My fingertips trembled slightly as I held the letter. The name, Emily Lin, gleamed with hope. The day before leaving for Beijing, I sent my mother 500 yuan, along with a small note. "I earned this from working. Take good care of yourself. I'm going to college. Don't worry about me." I didn't tell her the exact time of my departure. Before dawn the next morning, carrying a simple bag, I boarded the green train heading to Beijing. The moment it pulled out of the station, I leaned against the window and watched the familiar county town slowly fade into the distance. There was no lingering attachment, only hope for the future. The scenery flashed by in reverse, and sunlight streamed through the window onto my face, warm and dazzling. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be smooth. Beijing's prosperity and fierce competition, the intensity and challenges of the international relations program, they were all waiting for me. But I wasn't afraid. From the moment I was reborn in that exam room, I had stopped fearing anything. This time, I was heading toward a future that truly belonged to me. Emily Lin. After more than 10 hours of rattling along, the train finally arrived. When I stepped out of Beijing Station with my canvas bag, the morning sun was shining over Chang'an Avenue. The outline of Tiananmen was clear in the distance. People hurried past me. I heard waves of accents and foreign languages. Even the air carried the scent of ambition. This was Beijing, the place I had dreamed of for so long. The campus of the Capital University of Foreign Studies wasn't large, but it radiated scholarship and internationalism. In front of the red teaching building, flags from different countries fluttered in the wind. Students passed by speaking fluent foreign languages, which made me both nervous and excited. While handling my enrollment paperwork, the counselor looked over my file and smiled. "Emily Lin, you're the highest-scoring freshman in our department this year. Study hard. You have a bright future ahead." I nodded firmly, engraving those words into my heart. For the next 4 years, I poured almost all my time into studying. Every morning, I was the first person on the track practicing speaking. From English to French, from stumbling pronunciation to confident fluency, I pushed myself relentlessly. When my throat hurt, I sucked on throat lozenges. When my tongue went numb, I rested a moment and continued. The library became my second dormitory. International relations theory, international law, world history, anything related to my major, I devoured book by book. I filled more than 10 thick notebooks with notes. My roommates always said I was extreme. On weekends, they went shopping, saw movies, or went on dates. I was the only one who remained steadfastly in the library or study room. They didn't understand. I had no way out. Others could rely on their families. I could rely only on myself. Only by being exceptional could I stand firm in a city overflowing with talent. Besides my major courses, I actively participated in every practical activity I could. For the school's model diplomacy competition, I was the first to sign up. I played the role of a diplomat, giving speeches at the mock UN Assembly. To prepare proposals, I stayed up several nights in a row, researching international cases and polishing my statements again and again. During the actual competition, facing top students from all over the country, I wasn't nervous. I presented my views fluently in 2 languages and responded to challenges with clear logic. In the end, I won the Best Speaker Award. Standing on the podium receiving my certificate, I remembered the moment in the exam room when I wrote down my own name. It turned out that as long as I fought for it, destiny really could be rewritten. In my sophomore year, I joined the university's Foreign Affairs Reception Volunteer Team. The first time I helped receive a foreign delegation, I was responsible for translation. Even though I had prepared carefully, when I heard English spoken with a heavy accent, I panicked and froze for several seconds. The head of the delegation smiled kindly at me and said in Chinese, "It's okay. Take your time." That experience made me realize how wide the gap was between textbook knowledge and real-world application. After that, I focused even more on practical speaking practice, chatting with foreign teachers and joining language corners whenever I could. I even gathered the courage to take a part-time job at an outdoor restaurant in Sanlatun, just so I could interact with people from different countries and train my listening and improvising skills. Gradually, my professional abilities gained a bit of recognition in the department. My professors began recommending me for national-level international relations research projects, where I helped organize foreign language materials and write research reports. I was also invited to assist with interpretation at international conferences outside the university. Even though I was only helping on the sidelines, it allowed me to observe real diplomatic work up close. Watching diplomats stay calm and composed at negotiation tables, defending their positions with clarity and confidence, strengthened my determination to enter the diplomatic field. Occasionally, I received letters from the neighbor aunt back home. She would mention how things were at home, saying my mother was still in decent health, though she often muttered my name. When she mentioned Lily, she wrote that Lily had gotten into a local teacher's college and later became an elementary school teacher in the county. Her life was ordinary and uneventful. Once, the letter even mentioned Ethan Gu. The aunt said he had performed well in the military and had already been promoted to platoon leader. When he went home on leave last year, Lily had gone to see him several times, but he avoided her each time. In the end, he even asked someone to bring her a message, saying he wasn't thinking about dating for the time being. When I read that line, I was organizing research materials in the library. My pen paused for a moment, but I felt no real turmoil. All the love and hatred from my past life had already vanished the moment I was reborn. Whether he was doing well or poorly now had nothing to do with me. I only felt a faint sense of irony. After all the scheming my mother did to push Lily toward him, it still came to nothing. During my 4 years in college, I not only achieved excellent academic results, but also received a national scholarship and the outstanding graduate title. As graduation approached, several foreign companies reached out to me with job offers, each with excellent salary and benefits. My roommates all encouraged me. Emily, foreign companies pay well, have great environments. It's way easier than working in the government sector. Holding those offers, I hesitated for a long time. I had to admit the high salaries were tempting. They meant I could improve my living conditions faster and send more money home. But every time I remembered the diplomats I saw at international conferences and my lifelong dream of working in foreign affairs, I knew I couldn't give it up. Diplomacy might be hard and full of challenges, but it was the life I truly wanted. On graduation day, wearing my gown under the ginkgo trees on campus, watching the golden leaves swirl through the air, I felt completely certain. I rejected all the foreign company offers and submitted my application to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. What followed were the written exam, the interview, and the background checks, each step rigorous. I prepared day and night, reviewing all my professional knowledge again, and I even studied diplomatic etiquette and national policy in depth. When I received the acceptance notice from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I was packing my luggage in the dorm. Looking at the letterhead with the ministry's emblem, I couldn't hold back my tears. From the decisive moment in the exam room, to 4 years of relentless effort, to finally achieving what I had dreamed of, every step had been painfully difficult, yet so profoundly worthwhile. And I knew this was only the beginning. The road ahead would be full of storms, but I was ready. The ministry's office building stood solemn and dignified, the national flag waving in front of the entrance. The moment I walked through the doors, I instinctively straightened my posture. On my reporting day, the staff from Human Resources led me through the corridor, where flags from countries around the world hung along the walls. The photos of my seniors at international conferences filled me with deep respect. Emily, the HR teacher said, "You're one of this year's newly recruited graduates and also the one with the strongest academic performance. But diplomatic work starts from zero." He led me to the translation room, pointed at a desk by the window, and added, "You'll start with basic clerical work and assistant translation. Listen, observe, learn. Don't feel pressured." My first assignment was organizing and archiving foreign language telegrams and documents. Those telegrams covered dense foreign text and involved politics, economics, trade, diplomacy, fields full of complex, specialized terminology. Some even contained diplomatic expressions with subtle contextual meanings. In the beginning, I often stared at a single telegram for a long time, checking dictionaries and reference materials, and cross-referencing policy language to ensure every translation was completely accurate. Sister Zhang, one of the senior staff members, was a veteran diplomat. Her hair was already graying, but her work was exceptionally meticulous. When she saw me frowning at an English telegram, she walked over and pointed at a sentence. "This can't be translated literally. Constructive dialogue should be translated as constructive consultations based on diplomatic wording habits. She also reminded me, in diplomacy, nothing is small. Every word must withstand scrutiny. One mistake could cause misunderstanding. I wrote her advice in my notebook and pinned it to the front of my desk. From then on, I arrived half an hour early every day to review the technical terms I encountered. After work, I went home and memorized thick diplomatic dictionaries. Those days, my fingers were often nicked by paper edges, cups of strong tea emptied one after another, and the shadow under my desk lamp stretched long into the night. Besides translation, I was also responsible for meeting minutes and document preparation. When urgent meetings came up, I followed the seniors early to set up equipment and distribute materials. During the meetings, I took notes at top speed. Afterward, I had to produce a polished summary in the shortest time possible. Once, a cross-border emergency consultation meeting lasted from afternoon until late at night. My pen never stopped moving. By the time I returned to the dorm, my wrist was too sore to lift, but I still insisted on double-checking the minutes before resting. Entry-level work was tedious and exhausting. Some of my colleagues who joined at the same time began to lose motivation, complaining that the job was just repetitive labor with no end in sight. I had moments of fatigue too, especially when I looked out at the thousands of city lights and remembered the generous benefits from the foreign companies who'd offered me jobs. It was impossible not to waver. But every time I opened my notebook to the excerpt of my high school essay about seizing my destiny, or thought about the determination I felt when I wrote my own name on that exam sheet, or recalled the diplomats I'd seen at international conferences, I felt my resolve return. I knew growth required accumulation. Those seemingly dull translation tasks sharpened my linguistic accuracy. The repetitive document sorting helped me understand how diplomatic work actually flowed. The meeting minutes I stayed up late to finish strengthened my resilience and ability to adapt under pressure. Half a year into the job, I was finally given my first major independent assignment, translating a cooperation draft on Sino-foreign cultural exchange. The proposal involved a huge number of professional terms and policy details. It needed to be precise while fitting both countries' diplomatic tone. On the day I received the task, I locked myself in the office and examined it word by word. Whenever I encountered something uncertain, I humbly consulted Sister Zhang and the other seniors. I even reviewed translation archives of similar documents from the past 5 years to ensure my wording remained consistent. 3 days later, when I handed the translated draft to my supervisor, my heart was both nervous and full of anticipation. He read through it carefully, then looked up and smiled. "Emily, this is very well done. Your handling of the details is excellent. I wouldn't have guessed you were a newcomer." In that moment, all the exhaustion vanished. I knew my hard work hadn't been in vain. I had finally taken a solid step forward in the diplomatic system. After that, my supervisor gradually entrusted me with more important tasks. I began accompanying the senior staff on foreign affairs receptions, handling on-site interpretation, traveling with delegations for field research, writing research reports, and even coordinating smaller diplomatic events. Every time I participated in a foreign affairs activity, I cherished the opportunity. I observed how the veterans communicated with foreign envoys, how they upheld principles while remaining flexible, and how they used tactful language to ease potential tensions. I remembered everything, and slowly transformed it into my own capability. Once, at a small China Foreign Enterprise matchmaking event, a foreign representative suddenly raised a sensitive issue outside the agenda. The atmosphere in the room tightened immediately. The senior diplomat beside me calmly took over, responding with language that was both gentle and firm, clearly stating our position without embarrassing the other side. After the meeting, she told me, "Diplomacy requires both principles and artistry. You must learn to find a balance of mutual benefit while holding your bottom line." Those valuable real-world experiences helped me grow quickly. I was no longer the newcomer who only buried her head in translation work. I gradually learned how to handle unexpected situations and how to think with a diplomatic mindset. Days passed, and I accumulated 3 years of experience at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In those 3 years, I didn't produce any earth-shaking achievements, but through countless document translations, meeting preparations, and foreign affairs receptions, I built a solid foundation of practical skills. My immaturity faded, replaced with calmness and professionalism. I knew the road to becoming a diplomat was still long, but I never forgot my original dream. As long as I kept moving forward step by step, one day I would stand on a larger diplomatic stage. In my 5th year, I received the first major support assignment of my career: on-site interpretation and coordination for the China-EU Economic and Trade Cooperation Forum. The forum was high-level, attended by numerous government officials and business representatives from both sides. Before departure, my supervisor patted my shoulder. "Emily, this task is tough. You need not only accurate interpretation, but also the ability to handle unexpected situations. I trust you." I took his words to heart and began preparing half a month in advance. I read through every policy document on China-EU economic cooperation from recent years, compiled bilingual glossaries of more than 1,000 specialized terms, and even rehearsed potential Q&A scenarios, practicing tone and posture in front of the mirror. The forum was in Shanghai. On the day of departure, I dragged a suitcase full of documents and formal attire, my heart nervous yet excited. It was my first time independently handling the core interpretation role at such a high-level event. On the very first day of the forum, an accident happened. During the closed-door consultation session in the afternoon, the EU delegation's accompanying interpreter suddenly clutched his stomach, his face pale and drenched in cold sweat. It was clearly an acute illness. The venue instantly fell into awkward silence. The consultation was about to begin. Without an interpreter, the consultation simply couldn't proceed. The head of the EU delegation frowned and urgently asked in English if there was a backup interpreter. "Our agenda is extremely time-sensitive." The Chinese staff on site were visibly panicked. There was no time to find a professional interpreter at such short notice. I took a deep breath, walked to my supervisor, and whispered, "Sir, I can try. I've prepared all the materials for the meeting in advance, and I'm familiar with both sides' policy language." My supervisor looked at me, trust filling his eyes. "All right, Emily, it's yours." I immediately stepped toward the delegation head and greeted him in fluent French. I had specifically researched beforehand that French was his mother tongue. "Monsieur, I'm very sorry for the unexpected situation. I will serve as your temporary interpreter from here on. Please rest assured." He froze for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you, miss. I appreciate it." When the consultation began, I focused all my attention, catching every word with absolute precision. My mind raced. The topics they discussed included tariff reductions, market access, sensitive issues where every phrase had to be exact. At one point, the Chinese side mentioned a mutually beneficial cooperation framework. A member of the EU delegation questioned it, saying the expression wasn't concrete enough. I didn't translate his comment bluntly. Instead, I incorporated the foundation of previous negotiations and added context about equal consultation and protecting both sides' core interests. The explanation accurately conveyed China's intent while preventing misunderstanding, allowing the discussion to proceed smoothly. For 3 full hours, I stood translating without relaxing for even a second. By the end, my shirt was soaked with sweat and my throat dry, but when I saw both sides shake hands and my supervisor give me a nod of approval, I felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. The delegation head walked up to me and extended his hand. "Miss Lin, your interpretation was highly professional, not only precise but also keenly attuned to both sides' key points. You helped us resolve many potential disputes. Thank you for stepping in." Because of that unexpected rescue, my reputation at the ministry soared, and my superiors viewed me with newfound respect. After that, they assigned me to more important foreign affairs tasks. In the following years, I traveled with delegations to cities across China and abroad, participating in countless international conferences, foreign affairs receptions, and bilateral consultations. At consular protection sites in Southeast Asia, I used the local language to calm stranded citizens and help them complete the necessary procedures. At economic and trade negotiations in Africa, my knowledge of local policies helped build bridges of communication for Chinese companies. At small United Nations meetings, I served as an auxiliary spokesperson, presenting China's positions in 2 languages. Each mission was a form of training. I had seen the fierce battles of negotiation tables, as well as the solidarity shown in moments of crisis. I had endured dozens of hours of high-intensity work, and I had also felt the pride and relief of successfully completing a mission. During this process, I became far more than a translation machine. I learned to think from a broader diplomatic perspective, to understand how to remain flexible while upholding principles, and how to protect national interests using the right language and the right approach. Once at an international environmental conference, representatives from a few countries deliberately distorted China's environmental policies in an attempt to smear China's image. When it was my turn to respond, I didn't rush to refute them. Instead, I began by listing China's concrete achievements in environmental protection over recent years, letting the data speak for itself. After pointing out the inaccuracies in their statements, I concluded by emphasizing that nations should work together rather than accuse one another. My argument was clear, well-supported, and won the approval of many representatives, successfully shifting the tone of the discussion. As my experience grew, I gradually moved from assistant interpreter to project lead, eventually taking charge of foreign affairs missions on my own. My colleagues often said my presence had become stronger and more confident, but only I knew that behind that confidence were countless days and nights of accumulation and relentless practice. In my 8th year at the ministry, I was officially appointed as a core member of the China-EU diplomacy team, responsible for coordination work in several fields. The day I received the appointment, I stood by the office window, looking at the national flag fluttering outside, and thought back to the girl I had been 8 years earlier, carrying a canvas bag, nervous yet determined as she walked through the ministry gates for the first time. Through my own effort, I had finally secured my place on the diplomatic front line. I knew this was not the end. A wider stage and tougher missions were waiting ahead. But I was no longer the Emily who depended on others or let herself be used. I was a diplomatic officer, carrying responsibility and mission on my shoulders, walking a path that led toward my dreams. On my 10th anniversary at the ministry, I was organizing the latest report on China-EU digital economic cooperation when the office door opened softly. The director walked in holding a document, wearing a rare, warm smile. "Emily, come to my office for a moment." My heart skipped for no reason. I put down my pen and followed him. His office was simply furnished, with a world map covering the wall, full of markings that recorded countless diplomatic footprints. He placed the document on his desk and slid it toward me. "After discussion and review, the ministry has decided to officially appoint you as assistant spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs with full diplomatic rank. This is your appointment letter. Take a look." The words diplomatic officer exploded in my ears like thunder. My fingertips trembled as I picked up the letter. The writing was neat and powerful, and behind the name Emily Lin was the clearly printed label indicating my diplomatic rank. 10 years. From a temporary textile factory worker to a student at the Capital University of Foreign Studies, to an entry-level clerk in the ministry, and now to a diplomat, I had spent a full decade to finally reach the hall of my dreams. "Thank you, Director." I lifted my head, unable to hide the tremble in my voice. My eyes were burning. He nodded with a smile. "You deserve it. 10 years of hard work. Everyone has seen your dedication and capability. And now, there's an important task for you. Next Friday's Cross-Border Economic and Trade Cooperation press conference, you will serve as the primary spokesperson." I froze, almost unable to believe what I'd heard. That press conference was one of the ministry's major foreign affairs events. It would host dozens of mainstream media outlets from around the world and address key issues in China foreign economic relations. The level of attention was extremely high. As a newly promoted diplomat, being made the lead spokesperson was not only a huge vote of confidence, it was a tremendous challenge. "Director, I hesitated. It wasn't fear, it was the weight of responsibility." "I know you feel the pressure," he interrupted, his tone firm but encouraging. "But everyone has confidence in you. You've been responsible for China-EU economic coordination for years. You're familiar with the policies and real-world situations. Your language skills and crisis responsibilities have been tested repeatedly in real operations. You're more than capable of handling this press conference, the director said. He paused, then added, "This isn't just a test of your personal ability, it's also an opportunity for the international community to see the talent of China's young diplomats. Prepare well. If you need anything, everyone here will support you." When I stepped out of his office, sunlight streamed through the hallway windows, illuminating the marble patterns on the floor. I tightened my grip on the appointment letter in my hand, my heart both tense and exhilarated. 10 years of hard work had finally led me to a stage that belonged to me. For the next week, I practically lived in the office. My team and I organized nearly a year's worth of China foreign economic data, checked every policy line, and anticipated the questions journalists might ask. From macro cooperation frameworks to micro-level enterprise examples, from positive talking points to contingency responses, we refined everything repeatedly, polishing every sentence. To adapt to the spokesperson's speaking rhythm, I practiced posture and pacing in front of the mirror every day, ensuring I could appear calm and composed on camera. To prepare for questions from reporters of different countries, I crammed English and French in multiple accents, simulated difficult on-the-spot questioning, and even agonized over my clothing. I eventually chose a navy blue suit dress, formal, capable, yet understated. The senior colleagues on the team helped me enormously. A former spokesperson personally guided me on how to handle tricky questions, how to convey information accurately without inviting unnecessary controversy. The data team worked overnight compiling a thick binder of references so every figure I cited would be verifiable. During the preparation, I often thought of myself 10 years earlier, the girl who had walked into Beijing with nothing but a canvas bag, never imagining she would one day stand on a multinational press conference stage as a diplomat. All the hardships, the late-night study sessions, the years of training on the diplomatic front line, they had become the foundation of my confidence now. The night before the press conference, I stayed in the office late. The city lights outside painted a dazzling outline of Beijing's skyline. I flipped through the thick binder one last time, checking the key data and essential talking points. My phone buzzed. It was a text message from the neighbor aunt. She said my mother was doing well lately, and she often told people my daughter is doing big things in Beijing. Reading it, warmth rose in my chest. Although there were still gaps between my mother and me, I had sent her living expenses faithfully over the years, and occasionally called to check in. Maybe time really could soften some of the old wounds. I set down my phone and took a deep breath. Tomorrow would be the moment that tested 10 years of effort. I not only had to complete the mission, I had to prove to the world that the girl once pushed around by fate, Emily Lin, could now stand strong and speak for her country on the international stage. The next morning, wearing my navy blue suit dress and heels, I walked into the Ministry of Foreign Affairs press hall. The room was already packed with reporters. Camera lights flashed non-stop, and the air was thick with tension and formality. I stepped up to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at the audience. In that moment, all my nerves faded away, leaving only calm and resolve. After 10 years of sharpening my blade, today it was finally time to wield it. "Good morning, everyone," I said, my voice steady as it carried through the microphone. "Welcome to today's cross-border economic and trade cooperation press conference. I'm Emily Lin, spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs." My voice came through clear. I let my hands rest gently on the podium, maintaining a poised, professional smile. My gaze swept across the room. The red lights on the cameras lit up all at once, and journalists from various countries raised their recorders and notebooks. The air was filled with focused attention. Following the planned procedure, I briefly introduced the latest developments in China, foreign economic and trade cooperation, switching smoothly between Mandarin and English. My pace was steady, my logic clear. After so many years of diplomatic practice, I had long been accustomed to occasions like this. Even under dozens of watchful eyes, I could keep my composure, until my eyes passed over the first row of journalists, and froze. It was a face both familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. The contours were still the ones I remembered, but the youthful softness was gone, replaced by something sharper, deeper. His hair was brushed neatly back, revealing a broad forehead. His nose was straight, his lips pressed tightly together. The crisp military uniform he wore made him look even more upright, and the insignia on his shoulders gleamed, with a rank far beyond the platoon leader I vaguely heard about 10 years ago. It was Ethan Gu. My heart clenched, as if an invisible hand had gripped it. My breath caught for half a second. Why him? Why here? 10 years. I'd thought we had long become two parallel lines that would never meet again. I had climbed through the diplomatic world, and he had risen steadily through the military ranks. The entanglements of our previous life were buried under time. But now, he was sitting barely 10 meters away, his gaze locked onto me. So intense, so overwhelming. Like magma that had been simmering for 10 years and finally erupted. First came shock. His pupils contracted sharply, and the hand resting on his knee tightened, knuckles turning white. Then disbelief. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes filled with scrutiny and confirmation, as though he couldn't trust what he was seeing. And finally, all the emotions collapsed into something close to obsession. His gaze hooked into me like it wanted to consume me whole, filled with joy, confusion, yearning, and a faint ache that I couldn't quite name. He had changed. Yet he hadn't. The obsession in his eyes was still the same, but behind it now was a depth forged over the past 10 years. I forced myself to look away and continue answering the reporter's questions, but it felt like an invisible thread kept pulling my attention back toward him. Spokesperson, may I ask what specific support policies China has in promoting cross-border e-commerce cooperation? A foreign journalist asked. I steadied myself and answered fluently in English, listing China's tax incentives, logistics support measures, and other policies. The data I cited was precise, but in the pauses between my words, I could still feel it. Ethan's posture held rigidly straight, his gaze never leaving my face, as if trying to make up for 10 years of missing time. How did he find me here? Or was he simply attending this press conference by coincidence? Questions spiraled in my mind, pulling at my focus. Back then, before the college entrance exam, there had indeed been a faint, hazy affection between us. He was the older boy from the neighborhood, smart and steady. Whenever I was scolded by my mother, he would quietly give me a piece of candy and say, "Emily, don't be sad. You're exceptional." On the evening before the exam, he found me under the old locust tree and told me he was leaving to join the military. He said that when he returned, he wanted to sit down and talk with me properly. But later, my mother cut off all our contact and told me he had chosen Lily instead, and that I should give up completely. I believed her and buried every remaining thought. And now he was sitting right here beneath the stage, looking at me with eyes that burned like fire. Clearly, he had never known the truth about back then. Spokesperson, regarding the China-EU trade growth data you just mentioned, has China taken geopolitical factors into consideration? Another journalist asked, pulling me back to reality. I drew a deep breath, forcing down the emotions churning in my chest, and restored the composed professional smile on my face. Geopolitical conditions do have an impact on international trade, I replied in smooth, steady English, but China has consistently upheld multilateralism and remains committed to promoting trade liberalization and facilitation. My voice was calm and logical, but only I knew that my palms were already slick with cold sweat. Ethan Gu's gaze was too piercing, too sharp, like he could see straight through every layer of composure I had. It pulled up memories I didn't want to face. His back as he carried Lily away in my past life, leaving me dying alone in the cold. No, I couldn't think about that. I shook my head hard, forcing those memories away. I was the ministry's spokesperson now. I stood on an international stage representing my country's image. I could would not let personal emotions interfere. The press conference continued. The questions from reporters grew sharper, touching on trade frictions, market access, and other sensitive issues. I responded with composure, holding firmly to China's positions without losing flexibility, my professionalism earning recognition from the room. And all the while, Ethan sat in the front row, never once shifting his posture, never once looking away from me. I could see the struggle behind his eyes. He raised his hand slightly more than once, wanting to ask a question, but lowered it each time, restraining himself. Yet the madness and fixation in his gaze only intensified, like something on the brink of breaking free. Finally, the press conference entered its closing section. I delivered my concluding remarks, my voice firm and powerful. China is willing to work with countries around the world, upholding the principle of mutual benefit to promote sustainable and healthy global economic and trade development. Applause echoed through the hall. I bowed slightly and prepared to leave. At that exact moment, Ethan Gu stood up abruptly. His movement was so sudden that every head in the room turned. Cameras immediately swung toward him. Reporters raised their devices, shutters clicking wildly. A wave of whispers rippled through the hall. He didn't ask a question. He just stared at me, lips moving as if he wanted to speak, but held back by sheer will. The emotions in his eyes were impossibly complex. Reluctance, frustration, and a fixation so intense it bordered on collapse. I didn't stop. I didn't respond. I turned and walked out of the press hall quickly, my heels striking sharply against the marble floor. Even with my back turned, I could still feel that burning gaze searing into me. Inside the lounge, I leaned against the door and gasped for breath. My heart was pounding uncontrollably. Those almost desperate eyes of Ethan Gu lingered in my mind like a brand. 10 years apart. He had been looking for me for 10 years. The realization shook me to my core. What exactly had my mother told him back then? Why had he kept searching for me all this time? And now that he had appeared, what would he bring into my life? A soft knock sounded. A colleague stepped inside and said, "Emily, there's someone from the military asking for you outside. He said he wanted to see you." I knew immediately it was Ethan Gu. I took a deep breath, smoothed the hem of my suit dress, and forced my expression back to calm. What had to come would come. When I pushed open the lounge door, Ethan was standing at the end of the hallway. His uniform was immaculate, the stars on his shoulder insignia shining under the lights. But the steadiness a soldier should have was nowhere on his face. The madness in his eyes hadn't faded. Instead, it had been replaced by an urgency he couldn't hide. "Emily," he spoke first, his voice carrying a faint hoarseness, like it had been suppressed for far too long. I stopped walking and kept a polite distance between us. "Mr. Gu," I said evenly, "what can I help you with? I still have work to handle." "Mr. Gu," he let out a low, self-mocking laugh, bitterness flooding his eyes. 10 years without seeing me, and you can't even say my name anymore." I didn't answer. Some connections, once severed, never return. And between us stood not only the wreckage of a past life, but unanswered questions in this one. "Why?" He stepped closer, his gaze tightening around me. "After your exam ended that year, I came home on leave and went to find you the very first day. But your neighbor told me you had already left, moved away, and that you were never coming back. I went to your mother. She said you willingly gave up your studies, that you didn't want to see me, that I should stop bothering you." His words dropped into my heart like a stone, sending ripples through the calm surface I'd forced myself to maintain. So that's what my mother told him back then, that I chose to give up school, that I didn't want to see him. "I looked for you for 10 years. Ethan's voice trembled slightly. "I asked everyone who might know something. I searched everywhere you could have gone. I even left my information at every university you might have applied to. But you," his breath hitched, "you disappeared like you'd vanished from the world." My fingertips curled. "I thought," he swallowed hard, "I thought you really didn't want to see me, that you'd forgotten the promise we made under the locust tree. The promise under the locust tree. That evening, the sun sinking, the old tree's branches thick with leaves. He told me he was leaving to join the army, and when he returned, he wanted to talk to me properly." My face had burned, my gaze lowered, a quiet anticipation hidden in my chest. Who would have thought that would be our last meeting in this life, until today? "Mr. Gu, I don't want to revisit the past." I forced myself to break eye contact, my voice cold and controlled. Things were very complicated back then, and with my current position, I cannot discuss personal grievances. "Personal grievances?" His hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. His grip was so tight I winced. "To me," he said, voice tight, "this isn't a personal grievance. It's the answer I've been searching for over 10 years. Tell me, why did you leave? Why did you disappear without a word? Why didn't you give me a single explanation?" His fingers were cold and rough, with the texture unique to soldiers. The pressure on my wrist jolted memories of my death and my past life, the freezing despair. Instinctively, I pulled back. "Mr. Gu," I said sharply, my tone turning icy, "please behave yourself. Let go of me." Maybe my tone was too harsh. Maybe the words "behave yourself" cut deeper than I intended. His hand trembled slightly before he slowly released me. But his eyes never left my face. They were filled with hurt and confusion. "I know you're a diplomat now," he said softly, lowering his voice, a hint of pleading in it. "And I know your position is special. I'm not here to interfere with your work. I just want to know the truth." "Emily, even if you had just said, 'I don't want to see you,' I'd have accepted it." Looking at the obsession in his eyes, my emotions tangled into something indescribable. In my past life, I'd thought he chose Lily. I hated him for it, hated him to the bone. But hearing him now, in this life, I realized things might not have been what I imagined at all. How many lies had my mother told him back then, and what role had Lily played in them? "I didn't willingly give up school," I said after a moment of hesitation. "And I didn't move away either." Ethan's eyes widened sharply, shock surfacing on his face. "You fell out with your family? But your mom told me you gave up on studying yourself. She said you thought school was useless and wanted to get married early." "That was a lie she told you." I cut him off, my voice carrying a faint edge of mockery I couldn't hide. "My mom wanted me to take the college entrance exam for my sister Lily. I refused. That's why we fell out. As for the things she said to you, it was just to make you give up." "Take the exam for her?" Ethan froze, clearly not expecting that at all. Lily's grades. Her grades were always bad. If I hadn't taken the exam for her back then, she never would have gotten into college. My tone stayed calm, but inside, old grievances surged painfully. My mother always favored her. Ever since we were kids, everything good went to her first. Even my future. She wanted to use it for Lily's sake. Ethan went silent. His brows furrowed deeply as he struggled to process everything. After a long time, he finally spoke, his voice low and rough. "So, you didn't avoid me. You didn't refuse to see me. Your mom deliberately kept everything from me, cut off every way I could reach you." I didn't nod. I didn't shake my head. There were still truths that needed time to confirm. But right now, one thing was clear. Behind the betrayal of my past life was a web of lies my mother had carefully woven. I understand now. Ethan's eyes shifted, emotions flickering through them, anger, pain, and a faint sense of relief. "All these years, I thought you changed. I felt bitter, resentful, but I still kept searching for you. Lily came to see me several times, saying you didn't care about me anymore, telling me to accept reality. But I never believed her." He paused and looked straight into my eyes, his voice incredibly serious. "Emily, I never chose Lily. Not once. When I came home on leave that year, the only person I wanted to see was you. But your mom blocked me at the door, said you had left, and shoved Lily in front of me, insisting she was the one who truly cared about me. I refused, every time. But then the army had an urgent mission, and I had no choice but to leave." His words were like a key, unlocking a knot in my heart I hadn't even realized was still there. So the scene I witnessed in my past life, perhaps it hadn't been what I thought. Him carrying Lily away, maybe there had been another reason entirely. "I still have work to do," I said curtly. "I'm leaving." I didn't want to continue this conversation. I turned to go. "Emily." Ethan called out to me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, holding it out. "Do you remember this?" It was a single piece of fruit candy, wrapped in slightly yellowed clear plastic, the kind that had been popular years ago. I froze. It was the same kind of candy he used to slip into my hand back then, sweet, gentle, one of the few little lights in my otherwise bleak childhood. "I've carried it with me all these years," he said softly. As he looked at the candy, the wildness in his eyes faded, replaced by something warm and tender. "I always thought that if I ever ran into you again, I'd give it back to you." My heart clenched sharply, and heat stung at the corners of my eyes. The love and hatred of my past life, the reunion and truth of this life, all of it came rushing in like a tide, leaving me momentarily overwhelmed. "Thank you." I didn't take the candy. I only whispered the words, then turned and walked away quickly. Back in my office, I sat in my chair for a long time, unable to calm down. Ethan's words replayed over and over in my mind. My mother's lies, Lily's pretense, the misunderstandings of my past life, all of it finally pieced together into a clear truth. I pulled out my phone and dialed the neighbor aunt's number. When she answered, I hesitated, then asked, "Auntie, I want to ask you something. After I got into college back then, did Ethan come looking for me often?" The aunt was silent for a moment before she sighed. "He did. That boy came for you many times, but every time your mother chased him away. She even told the neighbors you'd already left and didn't want to see him. Emily, what your mom did back then really wasn't right, but she also—" "I understand. Thank you, Auntie." I cut her off and ended the call. The truth was now undeniable. My mother had deliberately severed every connection between Ethan and me so Lily could have a chance to marry him. She had lied, manipulated, even forced me to take the exam for Lily, destroying my life in my past timeline. And Lily? She had enjoyed all of it without the slightest guilt. Outside the window, the sky was darkening. I stared at the documents on my desk, but my heart had already made a decision. I would no longer let the lies of the past bind me. I would uncover every truth, and I would make those who tried to use me pay for it. I would reclaim justice for the me of both lives. Ethan's sudden appearance had shaken my world, yes, but it also dispelled the fog of my past. This time, I would protect my diplomatic career, clear every misunderstanding, and free myself completely from my family's chains. I didn't confront my mother or Lily immediately. Instead, I finished the diplomatic tasks at hand. The success of the cross-border trade press conference earned me higher recognition within the ministry. Soon after, I received a new assignment, accompanying the delegation on a visit to Europe. On the plane, looking at the clouds drifting past the window, I took out my phone and sent my mother a message. "I'll be coming home next month. There are things we need to talk about in person." She replied quickly, "Good. Mom will make your favorite braised pork." There wasn't a trace of guilt in her words, as if everything she'd done back then had never happened. During the 2-week Europe trip, I focused entirely on work. In the bilateral talks, my precise understanding of policy and fluent bilingual communication helped the delegation secure multiple cooperation agreements. When foreign media raised sudden, provocative questions, I responded with calm logic and firm reasoning, safeguarding our country's image. When we returned home, Ethan came to the airport to pick me up. He wasn't wearing his uniform, just a simple casual outfit. Without the sharpness of military attire, he looked gentler, quieter. "I know you're going home," he said earnestly. "I want to go with you. I'm not trying to interfere in your family affairs. I just want your mother to know. Those lies from back then need to be exposed." I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Some truths really did need someone to witness them. When I returned once again to that familiar little county town, not much had changed. The streets were still the same, and the old locust tree was still lush and full. I pushed open the door of my childhood home. My mother and Lily were both there, the table set with steaming dishes. When Lily saw me, she forced a stiff smile. "Emily, you're back." Ethan's appearance stunned both of them. My mother's eyes flickered with panic. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" "I'm here to hear the truth about what really happened back then." His tone was calm, but carried a weight that allowed no evasion. I sat down at the table and looked at the two people who used to be the closest to me. "I'll make it simple," I said. "Mom, Lily, today I didn't come back to fight. I just want to know why you lied to me, and why you lied to Ethan." My mother's face instantly turned pale. She set down her chopsticks and tried to act composed. "I don't know what you're talking about. Didn't I already explain everything to you back then?" "Explain?" I let out a small laugh, heavy with bitterness. "You told me I volunteered to take the exam for Lily, that I didn't want to see Ethan, that I gave up my education willingly. Mom, can you look at that old locust tree outside and say those things are true?" Lily's body trembled. She lowered her head, not daring to look at me. "It was me," my mother suddenly said. "I was the one who forced you to take the exam for Lily. It had nothing to do with her." She rushed to take all the blame. "Emily, I did it for your own good. Think about it. You're a girl. What's the point of studying so much? Better to let Lily get into college, marry well someday, and she could help you in the future." And Ethan, he's a promising young man. I thought if Lily ended up with him, our whole family could benefit. For my own good, I cut her off, my voice trembling. For my own good, you stole my entire future? For my own good, you fabricated lies that kept Ethan and me apart for 10 years? For my own good, you made me. I stopped abruptly. I almost mentioned my past life. Made you what? Ethan asked, confused. I shook my head. There was no need to bring that pain into this life. Mom, I said quietly, I never blamed Lily for having poor grades. I never wanted to take anything from her. I met my mother's eyes, my own steady and unflinching. I only wanted to live a life I earned through my own hard work. But what did you do? You treated me as Lily's stepping stone. You turned my dreams into tools for your social climbing. Suddenly, Lily lifted her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. Emily, I'm sorry. I really am. I shouldn't have listened to Mom. I shouldn't have taken your spot and pretended it was mine. I've never felt worthy. Not of that degree, not of Ethan, and not of your kindness. I'm sorry. Her apology came far too late, but it did loosen the weight inside my chest. My mother looked between us, finally lowering her head. She sighed. It was my mistake. I was biased. I hurt you, and I hurt Lily too. Emily, can you forgive me? I was silent for a long moment before I shook my head. Mom, I don't hate you anymore, but forgiveness is another matter. And in that moment, the room fell utterly still. I had already learned how to take care of myself, how to take responsibility for my own life. I would continue sending her living expenses, but the relationship between us could never return to what it once was. Some wounds, once inflicted, can never be undone. When I left home, under the old locust tree, Ethan looked at me. Emily, thank you for telling me the truth. I've lived in misunderstanding for so many years. Now I can finally let go. And thank you, I said softly, for looking for me for 10 years. He gazed at me, and a quiet smile appeared on my face. Calm, relieved. Ethan, the past is over. We both need to move forward. He nodded, eyes filled with reluctance, but still respecting my choice. All right, if you ever need help, you can come to me anytime. No matter where you are, I'll always be your strongest support. When I returned to Beijing, I threw myself fully into my diplomatic work. With strong professional skills, I participated in several major international cooperation projects. At the United Nations General Assembly, I presented China's positions in fluent bilingual speeches and earned the respect of representatives from many countries. During consular protection missions, I acted with calm precision, helping stranded citizens return home safely. 3 years later, I was promoted to senior spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, standing on an even higher international stage to speak for my country. Every time I faced the cameras, I stood calm and confident, my gaze steady. Strength forged through years, the radiance of a dream fulfilled. In my free time, I would go see the snow at the Forbidden City, or wander through the alleys of Beijing. Occasionally, I still received messages from Ethan. He had been promoted to Major General and continued serving in the military. We shone in different fields, becoming the most familiars to each other, bound by a wordless understanding. I continued sending living expenses to my mother, and sometimes called to check on her. Though our relationship remained distant, it carried a quiet peace. Lily eventually left her elementary school job and opened a small flower shop. I heard she was living a steady, peaceful life. Sunlight streamed through the windows of my office at the ministry, landing on my desk. There was a photo on it, my first appearance as the lead spokesperson at a press conference. In the photo, I stood in a navy blue suit, eyes firm, smile composed. I thought back to the day of my rebirth, to the moment during the college entrance exam when I wrote my name, Emily Lin. That was the turning point of my life, the beginning of breaking free from the shackles of fate. 10 years of grinding a single sword, from a sacrificial pawn taking an exam for someone else to senior spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. From a girl manipulated at every turn to a woman who owned her life completely. I, Emily Lin, finally became the person I always wanted to be. The suffering of my past life became the metal of this one. All the schemes and betrayals turned into fuel for my growth. Now, I stand on the international stage, facing the sun, shining bright. In this life, I did not fail myself. I did not waste the miracle of rebirth. My life at last belongs only to me.